Greg isn't talking very much in this episode. It's because he hates us. It's not because
Oh
he's
yeah,
sick.
that too. I am definitely sick.
He's
Sorry,
just stopped
guys.
talking to us this whole
I've
episode.
stopped talking. This is the Eric and Bruce show for this episode. Hopefully, I get better next week. Now let's get to the third movie we're covering this week. It is called The Eight Mountains. It won the Grand Jury Prize last year in Cannes. It's set in the mountainous village of Grana, and also the city of Turin. So you get a little bit of a cityscape, but mainly predominantly the mountain village of Grana. And it centers on just the close-knit friendship of Pietro. He is the city boy who spends his summer in Grana, but he lives most of the year and going to school in Turin. And then Pietro's best friend is Bruno. Bruno he's lived all his life up in the mountains of Grana. So it's about their friendship over the years. It is 2 hours and 27 minutes. So that is a big warning to people. If you're looking for a 90-minute movie or 70-minute movie, you might not appreciate The Eight Mountains. Bruce, let's start off with you. Your review, your thoughts on this movie.
Well, I guess my short thoughts is I actually ended up loving this movie, but once again, per your warning, this is going to be a movie that isn't for everybody at all. So it's because it's not there's no action as far as like things blowing up or sisu type stuff happening. But if you can get into the vibe of this movie, and we talked about movies that have a vibe, I think this movie has a very cool vibe. This is epic for me in the best ways, as far as like a relationship between these two guys, kind of in their whole lives. And it starts out with them as kids, and then I think at one point, maybe about 20 minutes in, we get a time jump to them as like late teens, early 20s, and then I don't know, another 15 or 20 minutes, we get a time jump to them in. It seems like they're about their late 30s, probably somewhere in that range, 30s, and they're at that general age for the rest of the movie. Um, and boy, this is one of those movies where you describe it, it doesn't sound very interesting, but for somehow watching it, I was on board 100,000%, and really, I really kind of sunk into these characters and really wanted to watch what happened with them. And it languid. You could say it's languid at moments. I want to see what Eric says. He might have been totally bored by this movie. It might be a total art house hellhole for him. But there's movies, for example, there's moments in the movie where somebody gets a dilapidated cabin up in the mountains on the side of really on the side of this giant glacial valley. It's beautiful, but the cabin's just rubble, stones, and wood. And it probably is a good 10, 15 minutes of the movie is them rebuilding this cabin and getting it up and running. And I was down for it. So once again, I'm not describing very well why I like it. It just felt like you talk about lived-in movies or movies where you really feel like you are sitting with the characters. This movie to me is one of those, and they both have arcs. The rich kid is kind of lost and doesn't know what he's doing with his life, and he was kind of resentful of his father who passes away. And then the other kid knows what he wants with his life. He wants it. He loves his life there in the mountains. That's his goal. And then some things change for him. I kind of loved it. There's a soundtrack that you may or may not love too, by Daniel Norgren, who is a Swedish singer-songwriter, and he sounds like some country dude out of Kentucky or something. I did not know he was from Sweden, but I looked it up. And if you like the mood that he's setting, that also just adds a whole like consistent tone to this movie. I love this movie.
Was it overlong for you or just right?
No, I was worried, and I was definitely worried. I watched it. I saw it was 2.5 hours. I'm like, oh boy, I don't know if this better be good. And after about 20, 25 minutes, I was down. I was down for the ride.
Okay, I'm going to start in a coughing fit, Eric Holmes, so I'm going to mute myself right now. Were you down for the ride with the Eight Mountains?
This is kind of like Drive My Car. This is like one of those movies that, like, if this was nominated for an Oscar for Best Picture, I wouldn't be surprised, but I kind of also didn't really like enjoy watching it. But at the same time, like after finishing all 16 hours of this movie, like I keep going back and like thinking of different scenes, like the when they decide that they want to tear down what's left of the house and rebuild another one, or like it's got a certain moments. In fact, Last Picture Show has similar moments where they we haven't seen each other in a while and they're sitting across the room just kind of looking at each other like, oh, we know each other, we're best friends, and not like this is kind of awkward. they have like little kind of personal moments like that. I'm trying to see, like, looking back on it, I think of like all the big emotional moments, and I'm kind of cramming it together in like a half-hour space, so I forget about like all the times where I'm just checking the watch going, okay, and we're wrapping up. Nope, we still got an hour and a half left. Damn it.
I kind of felt you might be there. So.
Yeah. But that said, I mean, there's a lot of great moments between the characters, kind of where it goes with the family stuff, because it kind of takes even thinking back on it now, it kind of takes a path of hey, isn't this romantic that we can do this thing? And then you see what the reality of it is, who you're avoiding, who you're neglecting, and then all of a sudden it's not so romantic anymore. Now you're kind of a shithead or craphead. It's a family show, Eric. But yeah, this is a really good movie. It's just not one I particularly like, but also looking back on it, I can kind of pick out a bunch of scenes that really work for me. I mean, even early scene where they're jumping over that I say chasm, but it's like a little rift in the glacier I mean, just that scene alone informs the whole rest of the movie. The dad made the jump, the kid made the jump, the son can't make the jump, and that kind of theme kind of carries throughout the rest of the movie, and stuff like that is really brilliant. But again, this is just a really, really great movie that I don't like, but thinking back on it, I do like parts of it quite a bit.
Directed by Charlotte Vandermeersch and Felix van Groeningen. They're both Belgian filmmakers, and they both were co-writers along with Paolo Cognetti. This is easily one of my favorite films of the year, probably a top 5. It'll remain their easy 5-star classic for me. And it's one of these things, although it's 2 hours and 27 minutes, it's a movie that I fell in love with. I am in love with. I can watch it time and time again. I love the way they explored the relationships between the two boys and then turning them into men and how different they become as they get older. Visually, it's one of the most striking films of the year. The compositions, especially if you love mountains and nature and brooks and streams and lakes, there's just a lot of it in this movie. Again, like Eric was saying, I think there's going to be people who will not like the movie because of its length, and it does meander. But just for the fact that it meanders and it goes through this winding road, like Bruce was saying, you get a very lived-in experience with the 8 Mountains, and very few movies give you that full breath of life that 8 Mountains does. Easily, again, a top 5 for me, possibly a top 3, 5-star banger for me. Eric Holmes, what is your rating on the 8 Mountains?
This one's tough too, because unlike like The Taking is like a not good movie that I still enjoyed watching. This is like a really good movie that I did not enjoy watching. It's for me personally, I'm just gonna go the same with Taking. I'm gonna go. Actually, no, that's not even fair for this one, because I'll go 3 stars on this. I will say, if you liked Drive My Car, I would absolutely check this out. If you were like me and you were like, I'm not feeling Drive My Car, this might be one to stay away from. But that said, it's a really good movie, just not my cup of tea at all.
The 8 Mountains, Bruce, what is your rating?
I think, first of all, I would agree with Eric that if you didn't like Drive My Car, and vice versa, if you did, go with that feeling with this movie. I think that's absolutely spot on. I go 5 stars as well. I loved it quite a bit. I want to mention one little fact, and I'm not going to mention what it is, but I want to get Greg's take really quick. Were you kind of blown away by there was an event that he talks about when he comes back from Nepal? I'm just going to say that, and how that event is brought back around at the end of the movie. If you know what I'm talking about, I'm just going to say that was amazing. That was amazing, oh my God, yeah. It was so good.
A lot of full circle moments in this movie.
Yes.
A lot. Yeah. Again, this has a very select audience. If you want to actually see a long movie about a life lived, really lived, then this should be the movie for you. Again, that's 5 stars for me and Bruce. Eric Holmes gives The 8 Mountains 3 stars.